Well,
Any?
I'll tell you a situation that I had, and I don't know whether some type of monitoring equipment would have probably helped me find it sooner. But I was having an intermittent problem actually like losing power off of the pedestal. And I couldn't understand why I would do that because the pedestal tested fine when I put my own meter on it. Well, anyway, long story short, the Tiffin came with a power reel, hooked to a surge guard, okay, which was great. However, what we come to find out after I replaced the surge guard, thinking it was a transfer switch, that the problem really was in the reel. The
Yep.
L1, the leg one had a flat, or I would call it a flat in mechanical way, but a bad contact and stuff.
Right.
So,
I,
I felt good that the system, sensed it and cut both of them out.
right.
But then, of course, the complication was they didn't have 110, so keeping the food cold was a little challenging.
Right.
But
Well,
that's okay.
so here's the deal. Those reels are not supposed to be reeled in or out under full power, because what happens is it actually has a ring of metal there, a copper ring, and it's got like a little brush on it, just like in your alternator or whatever. And as it spins, if you're running full power on it, it'll arc and create burn marks on that. Another thing they tell you, and this is talking to guys from Southwire and guys who build these, you need to exercise that reel on occasion. So, if you have a full timer and you're sitting with that reel in one spot for weeks or months, it will actually develop a dead spot in it. So he had one guy, these guys that had burned like 3 of these reels up in a year. And what he had done was he had pulled the reel all the way out, he'd plugged it in, put on the air conditioning, and while it was running, he would like take the extra slack off of it. Of course, he was destroying this thing each time he did it. So those reels are another source of potential shutdowns, as is transfer switches. Transfer switches are another problem area. I'm a huge proponent of at least every season opening up all the panels and checking the screw torques on transfer switches and on your power distribution panel and everything, simply because you don't have to do it in your home, because your home is generally not bricks and sticks house is not flying down the highway at 60 or 70 miles an hour like your RV is, and it doesn't go through those same temperature extremes that an RV does, and you don't have the same issue of in a home when you hooked into your power line, your inspector checked it one time and you're done. But every time you plug into a new pedestal, you're in a new electric system. That's why I think surge protectors are absolute necessity. But that's a great story. So yeah. Anyone else have reels? I guess all Class A's, a lot of them, they all have reels, but the littler guys don't.
We have a reel in our coach. We took delivery middle February, brand new 2020 coach. Went off on an initial journey, I guess, did 1,000 or 1,500 miles, came back to the Tiffin service campground. And while we were there having some warranty work done, our pedestal, I don't know what it was. I thought it was the pedestal. Our pedestal with a surge protector went out. We lost power. I wrote it down in my logbook, and I went up to the office and I said, I want you to know that at site number 7, the post just went out and we have no electricity. And I monkeyed with it, put the surge, disconnected everything, put it back on, and after a period of time, we got power back. But subsequently, the reeled cord failed 3 more times, and we just had it replaced. Had the plug, a male plug on the end of the cord replaced. We were told at the RV dealership that worked on it for us that it had burned. that, so they took the factory installed male plug off the end of our reel, put on a new plug, and this is our first trip with it, and it seems to be fine. I have no idea if it could have been caused by something happened at that pedestal down at the Tiffin service campground, or if it was possibly even wired wrong right out of the factory. Don't know.
What you see on those, if you could see if the plug itself, if the metal prongs coming out of it are burned, a lot of times that's because the pedestal that you've plugged into, the contacts are too loose. And a lot of this happens because people plug in and out with the circuit breakers on, and they arc and carry on. And that creates a high resistance thing, which melts that down, and people get mad because it melts the end off of their little surge protector. So, your $300 surge protector. I've had a couple people, what they've done is they've got like a little 6-foot extension cord, and they plug the 6-foot extension cord as the sacrificial cord into the pedestal, and then they plug the surge protector in it, and then they plug that into their RV, which ain't a bad idea sometimes. Of course, if it failed in the inside, it can also fail because the screws inside of the plug itself loosened up, and not all plugs are created equal.
So if you have this sacrificial 5-foot cord, plug it into the pedestal, then put the surge protector in between that RV where you plug in,
right,
that cord will burn, and it won't kill your surge protector.
Yes, I thought that was pretty clever.
I think that's very clever.
I've also had a couple people where they sent me pictures that the pedestal was so close to the ground that their surge protector was actually laying in a puddle of water, and they wanted to know if that was a problem. And I said, yeah. And so I recommended, okay, tell you what, go get one of these. And I found you can get like a 5 or a 6 foot heavy duty extension, and then you plug that in, run it up over top of the pedestal, right? And then put your surge protector on there, and then put some tie line on it. I just recently had another guy that, in one of my forums, they said that the 30 amp plug, the outlet, was in upside down. And when they put their surge protector in, it was going up rather than hanging down. It fell out of the thing, and then it burned the plug up. And they actually talked the campground into replacing their $300 surge protector. I thought that was amazing. That was the amazing part of it. But again, you could plug in this little sacrificial shorty thing, plug in your surge protector, and away you go. Now, I got a lot of people say, can I do 2 surge protectors? Won't they interfere with each other? And the answer is no, they absolutely will not interfere. In fact, it's a really good thing. If lightning comes in, it's probably going to explode the one out at the pole. And if you also have one inside of your RV, that one will help save your RV electronics too. You can never have too many surge protectors, sadly, because power at campgrounds is pretty bad.
So the surge protector that comes with the coach, it acts as the second surge protector.
Yes, exactly right. That's your onboard one. And then you can put one on the post. And like I said, if you get one with Bluetooth connection, you can, from your phone or a little thing in there, monitor everything that's going on. It's actually pretty good, pretty slick, I think.
But what are you talking about when you say surge protector that come with a coach? Is that your particular coach, right?
Yes.
Yeah, most of them will have some, and I've never really tested one. Somebody's got to OEM those things. But there'll be also, your automatic transfer switch, you can get versions of those that have got surge protectors built into them, in your coach itself. And I think that's probably what you have, I would guess, some sort of ATS that has some sort of a surge protector monitor thing in it.
I think so as well, but we got the Progressive just with the idea of having some
it's fabulous. The stuff Progressive makes a very good product. Having one on the post is really, really good. There's some guys, sadly, after they were bought out, when Progressive Industries, they were right down in North Carolina, and I'd been down to their plant and visited them. It was fabulous. And then they sold out to another company, and then sold out to a third company. But I don't know that they've really upped their engineering They were the first and the most famous, and it's a good solid product. I don't know that they have any of them that have got Bluetooth connectivity.
I don't
I
think
don't think
so.
so.
No.
Yeah, I've asked them. I've had conversations with them in the last couple of weeks, and they asked if I wanted any product, and I said, "Yeah, send me whatever you've got. I don't have any budget for this, so it isn't like I could go out and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on stuff and then destroy it." But you can see, I do like to blow things up. Yes,
Because,
you are.
Okay, I've got a Class C, have a surge guard, and a few years ago I was traveling back from the West Coast, stayed in a small city campground in Kansas, as I recall, plugged in my 30 amp, and it said I had reverse polarity. Well, I didn't turn it on, or, actually what I did was I used my 50 amp after testing. I used my 50 to 30 converter dog bone because the 50 amp was wired correctly.
Okay.
Now, this is a city-owned campground. So after I got home, I had the time, and I dug up the building inspector for the city. And I said, hey, you ought to go check XYZ. And I got a reasonable email. Thank you. We'll go check it and all that other stuff. So I have no idea how many of the pedestals. I mean, there were only like 9 or 10 RV parking spaces, but here's a city-run one.
Mike, I was just thinking along the lines of safety and campsites not hiring, most knowledgeable people to help them out. How as an RVer can I make sure before I plug my, $500,000 rig into their pedestal that I'm not going to blow up or blow something else up or lose something in the process?
I really think this is one of the reasons why I like portable surge protectors, because you could take this, carry it up to the pedestal and plug it in and validate that you think, oh, this is green screen, look at that. And validate that this thing is actually, that the pedestal doesn't have any really, really bad problems. Now, problems can occur later on, in the heat of the day. There's a bunch of things that can happen. But at the very least, you want to know right up front. And, in some of this, you've got to vote with your feet and just say, guys, I'm not staying here. And this is a horrible thing to do because and I know how hard it is to get a campground, to get a campsite. Or you just say, well, I'm going to run off generator and I'm going to charge you for my gasoline or diesel or propane or whatever. I don't know what the right solution is. I think that campgrounds, though, of the 3 different parts of this, is really like a 3-legged stool. So you've got the power that you plug into, the manufacturer's design, and then, what you yourself are doing in your camper. Those are the 3 things that influence all of this. But the campgrounds seem to do no maintenance at all. Some of the most horrific pictures that I've seen that are so dangerous have come out of like Disney campgrounds. Disney owns it. Now, Disney's got more money than anybody, I'm thinking, right? Couldn't they afford to go around and maintain their pedestals? And we're talking about like the 50 amp receptacle, the outlet on it, broken out with the exposed 120 volt contact right there at face level for a child without a cover. Do you understand what I'm saying here? A little kid walks up and touches that, he's going to be dead. And it was unconscionable. And the thing is, Disney would not call me back to tell me what they had done. But apparently, after I raised a bellyache, they did something about it. But I know this from working with lawyers and such, that they never want to actually admit anything in an email. That is, they don't want to have anything that's discoverable during a litigation if somebody was killed. And they can say, well, Mike Sokol told them that it was dangerous to do and we didn't do it. They don't want that to happen. So they generally don't want to talk to me.
I think what people don't realize, between the utility pole and your RV, there are a lot of parts.
Oh, God.
And the parts that you have some control over, you know, unless you have spent the extra $300 to buy another surge protector or bought, you know, something to do testing, I mean, you're really to their mercy. And I say that to the effect that just in the last two campsites ago, I wasn't getting any 110 to run my external lights. And it's on a GFCI, one of the newer ones, surprisingly enough. But I come to find out the GFCI was gone. And that brought to me, you know, going to them, the guy opened the pedestal up, and that was a scary sight.
Mm.
I know.
I've never been an electrician, but I had an electrical license and I've done NEC courses and stuff. But when I saw what he uncovered, I went, oh my God, how do I know that 50 amp plug that's got the 30 amp next to it and the 110 with all those, you know, wire nuts in there isn't wired wrong somewhere? And that's what prompted my question.
Right. The other danger, go ahead, Chuck, I'm sorry.
If they've got a built-in surge protector, like we plug ours in, we have a progressive, had it forever. We have a 30 amp and a 50. And we plug it in before we plug in our RV. And I know I can see by the error message or whatever, I can see. But what if it's built in? How could you test that? Is there some sort of inexpensive gauge? Is something that you could test that? How do you know? What do you do?
You can use a regular meter set to do this. Not a lot of people are comfortable with meters, and you have to know how to use them. One of the things that I've discovered 2-3 years ago was Army Corps of Engineer campgrounds. They are now not allowing you to meter the pedestals yourself, at least in this part of the country in the East.
That's crazy.
So, but you can plug in a tester, but you can't use a meter. And I asked them specifically, I said, what are you doing for a test? Oh, we hire a guy and he just tells them they're okay. And I said, well, what are you doing for an SOP? So, you know, military should run on standard operating procedures. And I said, I would love to help you develop your SOP for this. And they said, don't worry about it. We've got this covered. You know, I'm just a civilian. Well, you know, what the heck could I possibly know about this? So yeah, you are correct. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on an RV. And I still think it's silly to roll the dice. You plug the thing in and it burns it up. Now, I'll tell you another side story here. Okay, so last year at Alumapalooza, you know, the Airstream factory, in fact, I was out there the very day that this happened. Airstream just kind of ran like extension cords on the ground to everybody, just with little splitters sitting on top of plastic buckets to keep them out of the water, and a bunch of other stuff. Something had happened. They lost the neutral. They burned up 5 or 6 Airstream electrical systems. One guy that went and touched his hitch was knocked down on the ground and knocked out. Okay. And Airstream thought nothing of this. In fact, they would not answer or respond to me. And, you know, somebody had pointed this out to me on the Rivets forum or whatever it is. And they said that they told me that I was the bad guy because I was going to get them kicked out of the Airstream. Wasn't going to give them a free place to do their show next year. I was the bad guy. And I said, they burned up 6 RVs, but burned them all up. And I said, well, yeah, but they fixed them. They took them in there and I got a new refrigerator and I got a new this and I got a new that. They were happy to have the new stuff done. I said, but a guy very nearly died. And they said, well, yeah, but he didn't die. And I'm like, are you hearing yourself are you listening to the words that are coming out of your mouths? I think that each of us has to take the position of our own personal safety. This is like when you're driving on the road, and if that says the 70-mile-an-hour limit, that's when conditions says 70 miles an hour. When it's snowing and icy and everything, maybe it's 35 miles an hour. We all have to take a certain amount of personal responsibility. I think one of the cheapest things you can do in terms of guarantees is this $300 or $400 an intelligent surge protector. They call it EMS or an all protection device or whatever. I think that that's an important investment, simply because if you burn up your RV's electrical system, that thing could be down for months before somebody figures this out. There's a lot of electronics in an RV. Good golly.
Especially the new ones. So Mike, is it better to have an external surge protector than have an RV that's got one that's built in?
I would like to have both. I really think it's both. I like the ones that are in the ATS automatic transfer switches. And then I also like to have one on the post. And the simple thing is you can ride out to the pedestal, the campground that you're going to use. What I see a lot of people do, and it seems silly, they back in, which is by itself fraught with all kinds of issues. So, once that is done correctly, then, you want to go through this whole process of doing the proper testing. You just do. I see stuff burn up everywhere. It's crazy.
When you have a built-in one, like for example, we've been in places where, the power's been shut off by our surge protector because the voltage got too low. And I can go out and actually look at the pedestal, and I can see that we're down to 112 volts or something, or whatever it might be. If you have one built in, would there be any way to check that?
I don't know. Some of them have it. The built-in ones, you're kind of subject to the manufacturer's control panel and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Back to I like the one on the post, even though everyone's worried about them being stolen, because again, that's the thing that's the first responder, as it were. Yeah.
You can usually lock those things. We have bicycle locks. I mean, granted, somebody come in with bolt cutters and
right. They've got, this one, they've got stuff like that. And, if, locks only just keep honest people out. And most thieves will move on to something that's too hard to do. But it just depends on, your worry. So for instance, generators are the thing you got to worry about. And this thing's $300, I've got a Honda, an EU7000i generator that I use for big shows. That's a $5,000 generator that somebody could roll into the back of a truck. And one guy's not going to pick it up. I'll tell you, they're not going to. And I got an EU3000 that they could pick up and take.
Yeah. So let me ask you another question along those lines. Oh, I'm sorry, Chuck. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
We were talking about Surge Guard being built in, like in Tiffins, okay, mounted inside, and some of the old ones don't have, the intelligence, lack of a better word.
Right.
Another manufacturer has one with Bluetooth, and you're capable of monitoring it remotely, blah, blah, blah. Would there be a problem with two different brandings of Bluetooth? I mean, not Bluetooth, excuse me, of surge protectors, with one having Bluetooth capability, the other one not? I mean,
no, I think there should be no problem whatsoever hooking those together. I've talked to every major manufacturer, because remember, I've got the guys from Camco, Surge Guard, Progressive, and Hughes all on speed dial. I got their engineering guys. I call them up and I say, hey, I want to know about this, that, or the other thing. Every single one has said you can run multiple ones with no issues. I've done it here in my test lab. Another thing people say, can you run two GFCIs together? They interfere. No, they do not interfere. one of the things I've asked Southwire for is like half a dozen of those plug-in GFCIs. I just want to do a lab test and video it. I just keep plugging in GFCI after GFCI after GFCI and then testing it to show that it doesn't matter how many you plug in. It really doesn't. They're the weakest one, or the one with the lowest threshold, will trip first. So campgrounds, what you've got to think about is there's two parts to these surge protectors, the intelligent ones. One is the idea that they're checking for high voltage, low voltage, open grounds, and all the other one. And the other part is this ability to absorb spikes, the actual surge protection part of it. I don't like the word surge a whole lot because it's really a voltage spike. I think I've got a screen up here I can show you once. Hang on one second. Let me see if this will let me share my screen.
If it won't, I can try to make sure that you can.
Yeah, it looks like it can. Okay. So do you see my screen right now?
Yep.
So this voltage spike, this is why I don't like to call it a surge. So this down here is your little guy. Can you see if I do this, can you see my screen go boop?
Yep.
Okay, so this guy right here, this is our 120 volts kind of bopping around. Now, a lot of people don't realize that's not actually 120 volts, it's actually 170 volts. RMS just means it's an average of 120 volts. But what will happen is if there's a nearby lightning strike, you get this spike, and it can be upwards of 2,000 volts. And this is when you see that thing has got joules of protection, Joules. That means watt seconds of protection. That spike, what you don't want that spike to do is get inside of your RV, because your electronics do not like voltage spikes at all. If you let it get inside of your wiring, it tends to blow up the stuff like your refrigerator controls, your furnace controls, your inverter control. It just burns up all of the little, the smart bits burn up first. And therein lies the problem. What you want to do is get something that will protect you against that. And those are those little MOVs inside, those MOVs, metal oxide varistors. They are sacrificial elements. So they'll get hit, hundreds of times. And, each one of these are rated for a certain amount of joules. So what they do is they keep adding more of them in. So you'll see that any of these guys will be marked. They'll say, for instance, this surge guard I've got here is 2,450 joules. After it gets hit a couple of thousand times, or like one big lightning hit, it'll burn these guys out. So this little guy will burn out. And you can actually, I've got a couple of them, you can actually see they actually have a burn mark in them right there, right smack in the middle. And then the little light will go off that says protected. So that's why, this is why these things buried inside of your RV's guts. I mean, they do a good job, but I like to know things. I drive everybody crazy, except for my kids now, who now drive me crazy because I made them this way, They check everything. They question everything. They run math on everything. They are me on steroids, if you can imagine that.
No, can't imagine that.
And I have identical twin boys as well. So, yeah.
All
So
right.
could I ask a question?
Sure, go
Sure.
ahead. Yeah.
So if you're ready to, I have a 30 amp, so if you're ready to spend the $300 and some, is there any good article that reviews the Hughes, Progressive, and Southwire against each other so you can figure out which one to buy?
You're in luck, because sometime in the next month, I have all of those. I'm getting ready to do a review of all four of the major brands.
Okay.
Hughes just finally sent me a power watchdog. I've got every surge guard unit out there. I've got a Camco unit, and I've gotten several of the Progressive units. And I'm going to line them up on the bench, and I'm going to go through all the basic testing and the things that they do. And I'm going to try, and I've got the ability to over voltage, under voltage, reverse. I can make them dance.
For now, which one, she's talking about
Right now,
We're
okay,
asking
right now,
about
in
the
terms of
best
technology, I like the surge guard stuff the best. I've reversed engineered all of these guys on my bench, with the exception of the power watchdog. I just got one in a couple of days ago. But of all the ones, I think that, notwithstanding, because I don't know enough about the the Hughes product yet. I would say that the Surge Guard is my top of the list. Second, followed closely. Second is Progressive Industries. And the Camco one is kind of like a far third. They seem to be about 2 or 3 generations back in smart engineering. And there's a couple of other wannabe companies out there, but those are really the 4. I think that interestingly, the Power Watchdog has a replaceable circuit board whenever it gets burned up from too many voltage spikes. It's field replaceable. That has its advantages, but the fact of the matter is there's other electronics that can fail. I don't know how you test it when it goes in there. I'm going to ask them specifically when I'm getting ready to do this test. How can they guarantee that just replacing that board will, in fact, restore it to complete operation? I don't know. But right now, I'd say, if I had to buy one today, it would be really between the Surge Guard and, just because the Bluetooth thing is so great, and the Hughes Power Watchdog. Now, this is completely separate from my other question of the Hughes auto transformer debacle with the code. That's not the same thing at all. It's a whole different animal. This is their Power Watchdog unit, which might be pretty good. Now, when Surge Guard gets their Bluetooth phone app up and running, they may be top of the leaderboard. I don't know yet. Again, everybody wants me just to make an opinion. I'm a scientist. I gotta do facts. You're right. A lot of this is Ford versus Chevy, versus Dodge, Ram. It's that kind of stuff. Each of them has different features. Luckily, a couple of years ago, I had another wannabe company paid me a fair amount of money to reverse engineer all the other manufacturer stuff. They sent me every one out there, and all they wanted me to do was figure out how all of them worked and tell them how they worked. And I said, I'm up for that. So I spent weeks just tearing them all apart, doing basic testing, drawing out the schematics, reverse engineering them, and turning them in. So I know a lot about the basics of what they can and cannot do. Now that I have my full lab set up, that I can actually do real destructive level testing on these things, I'm going to know more things here, but I've got to, basically, I'm trying to be a good husband and not blow up the house, kind of a deal. I used to do this in my office here in the house, but now I've got this move to a big building out back. And one of the things I've threatened to do is get one of those big metal sea containers, like you see on Ghostbusters, for the really dangerous stuff. I'm not kidding myself. This stuff has got some fairly high energies, to the point where it could be a bomb with shrapnel.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because this is going to be in the archives, can you say something briefly about the difference between the cheap surge protectors, the under $100 ones, and the ones that are, cost $300?
Yes. Give me 1 second to go grab another one here. Hang on. You can hear me, but you can't see me. I don't have the little one laying there. Wait a minute.
Because I see both in the campgrounds. I see a lot of people with the little cheap ones.
Okay. So I don't have them both here. My bad here. Okay. So let's talk about the difference between what we would call an EMS, or electrical management system, or an advanced one, and then the basic ones. I think, oh, wait a minute. I've got some pictures here. I do have pictures. Here we go. Okay. Let me go back and share my screen.
A lot of people have those $100 ones, you see that a lot.
Right. Okay. So here we go. You should see my screen. Differences between basic and EMS surge protectors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this guy right here is a little $100 one. See this guy? Surge Guard makes them. Camco makes them. Progressive makes them. Everybody makes them. They're a skinny little thing. They're basically a hot rodded version of the power strip that you got for your house. Now, they do pretty good. They have lights on them and they help, but they cannot protect you from over voltage, under voltage, open ground, reverse polarity, off frequency on a generator, any of those other things. All they can protect you from is a spike. It's the only thing they can protect you from is voltage spikes. So they're better than nothing. Now, far better are what we call the EMS units. And EMS is a trademark coined by Progressive Industries. And so basically the electrical management system, that includes all of that spike protection. But in addition to that, what they do is they also look for these under 104 volts, they shut down. I think it's over 130 volts or whatever, it shuts down. Open ground over 30 volts, it shuts down. Reverse polarity, it shuts down. So all these things, it shuts down. Basically, it disconnects you from that. Now, one of the things that you can do, which I think is actually a pretty good idea, if you already have like the expensive version of this guy right here in your built into your RV, it's reasonable to just add one of these cheapy guys out on the pole, basically to give you this lightning protection coming in. So if you're on a budget, spend $100 or $75 or whatever on one of these. If you already have a built-in one, if you don't have a built-in one, then I think you need this on the post itself. And I got guys that are complaining all the time, but the power is shutting down. I'm going, what? These things are trying to save your RV's electrical system from damage. And these damages are cumulative. One of the tests that I am getting ready to run here is I bought a Variac. I think I've got them right out here. Hold on. So this is like show and tell. Okay, everybody see this baby? This is a this is a big monster transformer, right? Wait a minute. Oh, you can't see it yet. Okay, my bad. Hold on.
You're too close to the camera.
No, I gotta stop sharing the screen. So now,
Yeah.
you see this guy?
Yes.
Okay, so this guy allows me. It's basically a 3,000 watt. It's a 25 ampere variable voltage transformer, which allows me to go ahead and vary the voltage up and down on an air conditioner. And Dometic sent me an air conditioner to play with. Basically, if I would send them the data, and they said, we think if you run them below 105 volts, they'll burn up. And I said, have you tried this? And they said, well, no. Would you try it? So this is why they sent me one. So that's one of the things I'm going to go and do an experiment here and just see. So if you run your air conditioner at these low voltages, this is what it's trying to protect you against. It's trying to save your air conditioner. So that's the difference between those two guys. Let's see, live demonstration, over voltage plugs. The other thing that you've got to worry about is when you have a 50 amp service, is that if the neutral opens up, you've talked about that gob of wiring inside. If the neutral opens up, you no longer get 120 volts. And that's when you can get above 120 volts, a lot above 120 volts. So normally you've got 3 wires coming down there. Let me just see if I can get this back off of here. So you have your neutral and your 2 hots. If the neutral opens up, normally you actually have 240 volts coming into your pedestal. Because you have 240 volts coming into your house. It's divided, it's split down the middle, something we call a split phase, which is supposed to divide that 240 into 120 and 120. But if there's a break in the neutral, that 240 volts divides up whatever it feels like. So the half of the wiring in your RV can go to 40 volts. Guess how many volts it goes to in the other half of your RV? 200 volts. Guess what things will be plugged into the 200 volts side? The expensive bits. This is when it burns up the microwave, burns up your refrigerator, burns up. I mean, it just starts going down the line, it's just burning everything up in seconds. And you know, and I've personally seen this. I've actually seen it coming into a house where the neutral opens up and it fries half of the stuff in your house. So surge protectors, intelligent surge protectors, cost twice as much or more. Think, you know, $300-ish kind of a thing. But I still think it's the absolute best, cheapest insurance you're going to get to keep your RV electronics healthy and happy.
Yeah, we've had ours turned off several times, and I always wondered about the people next to us, you know, who just kept using their power.
Well, and they've got cruddy power, and they don't know it, and they're you know, they're dumb and happy. But then maybe a year from now, their air conditioner is going to need to replaced, or they're going to need to replace their circuit boards in their Dometic refrigerator, or they're going to, you know, and they don't realize that thing from 6 months ago is what caused their refrigerator or whatever to burn out now. And I'm so careful with electronics. You know, I've got stuff going back 50, 60 years. I got stuff older than me that I keep, and I can keep running because I'm very careful with the power that I apply to it. And I probably do proper maintenance on it, you know, and I collect vintage gear. You can see back here, all kinds of stuff. But the expensive new stuff in an RV is that what you don't want to blow up.
Yeah.
Like that kind of brings us to the question I guess we started with on auto transformers.
Yes.
I mean, as a part of the arsenal of protecting your rig, of putting an auto transformer before your surge protector or after it. I mean, where would it go in this?
Okay, so first off, here's the problem. The auto transformers and the Hughes brand autoformer is currently a code violation as per 2020 National Electrical Code. And in fact, it was written in the language, and they put the code out every 3 years. So there's a 2017 version and 2014. As of 2014, they were hinting about this. So one of the things that I've decided to take on as the challenge is it was the National Electrical Code Committee made it a violation because if you have standard loads in there, what it does is it trades voltage for current. So what it does is it gives you more voltage, but it pulls more current from the pedestal. And so the idea is you're stealing power from the next guy so that you can have the power. You're getting more than your fair share. That is the theory. Now, Hughes has gone and contended, okay, guys, what's happening is that's true if you're in purely resistive loads, but if you're in inductive loads like air conditioner motors, Hughes says that is not true. That is, the voltage drops in the air conditioner, it draws more current, and that their gadget, an autoformer, actually reduces the current draw from the pedestal rather than increasing it. So here's the wacky thing. Nobody's tested this. Nobody's tested this. Everybody just keeps looking at calculations and blustering and rattling sabers and asking me, and I'm going, well, if I look at calculations, it says this, but I look at that way, it says that. And I said, okay, why don't I test this? Now, a year ago or so, Hughes, when they found out that this was in the 2020 code, wanted me to go do a test for them that they could use specifically to fight the National Electrical Code ban on the thing. And they wanted to pay me to do it. And I refused to take any money because I said, no. Anything that I do that I take money for, nobody's going to believe me. So I can't. I won't do this. And I said, I got too many other projects online here. I don't think this is a big deal. However, in the last several months, I probably have 100 emails from people asking about Hughes this and autoformer that and on and on and on. And remember, I have talked to the committee members from the National Electrical Code that banned this, who have asked me, what do I think? And I said, I think I don't know enough yet. So I went and I asked Hughes to send me, guess what I've got? I have the 30 amp version of their autoformer. And I've got a 15,000 BTU Dometic air conditioner. And I've got all the other bits and pieces that I can basically build an entire RV electrical system on my bench and monitor it. And I've got a big monster variac, which means I can start taking the voltage down 1 volt at a time and then measure everything. And then I'm going to know something. And until I know something, I can't recommend something. I mean, I just flat out tell them. And I said, right now, my position is it is a code violation, so I cannot recommend it. I won't recommend something that's you know, that is a violation. I won't do that. But if my data proves out, if Hughes is right, they're going to use my data to have that reversed in the National Electrical Code so that they can still be utilized. And I think that's a good thing. However, if Hughes is proved wrong, this could put them out of business. So they sent me a unit and they said they're rolling the dice because I told them I won't lie. I won't lie to anybody about anything. This is science. I'll lay all the data out. I will send it out to a number of my colleagues around the world for peer review. And I'm going to say, you guys fight this out. I stay out of the politics. I am purely an engineer and a scientist and occasionally a rock and roll guy that used to jump through fireballs when I was a kid. I really did. So, notwithstanding that, I think that, you know, the real problem is campground power is really, really low. And now, as a side note, I have developed a theory that many of the causes of the low voltage campgrounds is due to the fact that the loads are not properly balanced on L1 and L2 going through the campground. And I see so many sites where the one side is like, you know, 5 or 8 volts lower than the other side. And so I posited this idea that, and I said, don't you guys know that from pedestal to pedestal to pedestal, you ought to be reversing L1 and L2, L1 and L2, which means the 30 amp grabs off of the one half of the line, and the next time it grabs off the other. And then it flips the two things also on the 50 amp, because, you know, most RVs are wired up the same way, with the one leg being hooked to the primary air conditioner. And and my theory is, if you simply go identify which pedestals are on which phases and you flip them, that you might save 5 to 10% of lost energy in a campground. You might restore 5 volts easily. And I've got a campground. Where's that one, Chuck? It's in Walnut something or other.
In Staunton, Virginia.
Staunton, Virginia, that is doing that test this weekend. So what they're doing is they're going through all of the big string of pedestals, and this only works on a 50 amp pedestal. They're going through that, and they're measuring all of these things. And then what we're going to do here in a few weeks is go down, rewire all of these things according to my theory. Then I'm going to test this again. If this works, then this is something that won't cost a campground anything except probably 20 minutes labor for every other pedestal to go and correct. And I've done load balancing going back to my industrial electrical engineering days back in the 70s. And I'm just surprised that campgrounds don't do this. I was just amazed that they didn't understand this, that they didn't know this. I just assumed that you did this, but I think they're all wrong. And if I can come up with that, that's going to give you an extra 5 volts back anyway. I think, maybe.
That'd be a big help, because usually when your surge protector does turn you off, it's usually just a few volts.
It's just a few volts. And so instead of going down 104, let's say I could keep that up closer to 109 or 110. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and I can do that without, you know, these guys say, just rewire the campgrounds. You know, I've seen some of the quotes. It's upwards of $500,000 to $1 million to put in new wiring for campgrounds. I think there's a better way to do this, utilizing the existing infrastructure, if we do it intelligently. And while they're at it, they should put in new receptacles that are old and beat up, and they should test circuit breakers, and just go down the line. And I know, and now I did. Now there's a couple of other little tricks that me and one other guy are working on. I think that we could save up to 30% of campground electric energy, reduce campground bills by 30%. Wouldn't that be something? I think I know how to do this. I can't divulge it yet, but if I can, wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, look at Arnie up here. He's got his mask on, so he's being polite to us, so he doesn't infect us. Mike, we're already, we're
10 minutes over.
A pressing question here that we should do before this, and before we sign
We can
off.
do this next month if you want. You know, I'll be on next month if you like. I think you got a couple. Who's your next guest coming up here? Is it Roger Marble? Or?
Roger, right in the middle, because Roger's the tire. He's the national tire.
He's a tire guy.
Yeah.
Are you going to be here next week, Roger?
Yes, I am.
Are you going to blow up any tires or anything for him?
No, I'm not. You can do it on a bench. The test machines for tires are the size of a 1-ton pickup.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Good point. But yeah, I won't be here. I will be in Baton Rouge testifying next week.
Hey, that's fun too.
It is all fun. All good stuff. But I'm not going to fly. I'm driving. I'm driving down there, but that'll be interesting. But yeah, So I'll watch the recording of this. So Chuck's got this recorded. This should be interesting. You guys like this? You know, if you've got more questions and such, send them to Chuck. You know, if you've got technology questions about this, you can just, Mike at noshockzone.org or Mike at rvtravel.com. I'll get it either way. Or just, go on to any of my Facebook pages if you've got that, and, send me a little, pingy thingy or whatever. And away we go. Anything else we need?